Thanks for coming back. It's Andrew from the Revisionist Almanac. We are here once again to continue running through my list of the biggest omissions from the New York Times top films of the century, both the critics and the readers list. If you haven't listened to my intro on this series or the first 20 movies in parts 1 and 2, be sure to check those out in the description below, and then come back to this. We left off the last episode in the year 2016, and we're going to pick things up in that very same year. One of the best horror films of the century and one of the best zombie films in history, that's Yun Sang-ho's Train to Busan. This really is the perfect genre movie for people who love movies about The Walking Dead or someone that normally isn't into that sort of thing. Beyond just being a masterclass in building tension through a claustrophobic environment, it's the central relationship at the middle of the movie revolving around a family that's helped this movie stand the test of time over almost a decade. This is one of the films I recommend most to people, and almost every single time I do, the message I get back from that person after they've watched is something to the effect of, I didn't know I was going to be crying that much at the end. It's that kind of impact that allows this movie to stand out from a crowded field of movies dealing with zombies. Let's go back one more year in time and into 2015, where we'll get to one of my favorite Pixar films, Inside Out. Pete Docter's remarkably inventive story about a young girl going through life changes, told through the perspective of the emotions inside her head, is both ingenious and it speaks to us all on a universal level. We've all been awkward, shy, weird kids, some of us like myself still awkward, shy, and weird adults, and this story will have you laughing and crying in equal measure. The voice acting is stellar top to bottom, and the animation is bright, vibrant, and imaginative. This is a flawless piece of animation, and Pixar also deserves credit for making a recent sequel that was able to bring a similar level of charm, while we got to see the next evolution of the Riley character moving her way through her teenage years. We continue winding back the clock and get to the one and only 2014 movie I have on my list, and it's also the movie I picked as the best of that year when I did an Almanac episode on it in Season 1. That's Dan Gilroy's dark, disturbing film Nightcrawler. This piece of filmmaking continues to get scarily more relevant as each year passes. It's a movie in the spirit of Network from 1976, looking at the world of news television and the lengths people will go to make sure they're successful and people are watching their programming. Beyond the story being frighteningly accurate to what news TV has become, we get for my money the single best piece of acting from the great Jake Gyllenhaal. He's made a career out of strong, diverse work, but the way he inhabits the character he's playing here is on another level. This movie's still under the radar for the larger movie-watching public, but this is your notice to put it on your own watch list. I have no doubt you're going to thank me for the recommendation once you've gotten around to watching it. Moving into the year 2013 now, and we have the lone film from that year that wasn't represented, but that I think is worthy of a place. That's the immaculate conclusion to Richard Linklater's Before trilogy, Before Midnight. The middle film in this series, Before Sunset, made both the critics and the readers list, yet this final film was weirdly omitted. And sure, I know the first two movies have a higher degree of hope and optimism to the love story between Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy's characters, but I think the way Midnight tackles the reality of long relationships, and the way being with someone that long can lead to conflict, resentment, and anger, even if you're still deeply in love with that person, rings true. This is the rare trilogy of films that are all on equal ground in quality, and as time has gone on, I've found myself re-ranking them depending on where I'm at in my own life and my own relationship to my wife of over a decade. This is a perfect film that 100% should stand shoulder to shoulder with Before Sunset and Before Sunrise in stature and respect. We go another year back in the past, and the one and only film from 2012 that I felt was necessary of placement. We're going to talk about Thomas Vinterberg's challenging film, The Hunt. It's the story of a school teacher who has what seems like a really solid place in his community until a very young female student accuses him of something truly heinous. From here, we are continually confronted with how the lead character, played so well by Mads Mikkelsen, has to deal with the allegations as it affects everything in his personal and his professional life. This is a movie I go back to regularly, even though the subject matter is not easy to deal with. What makes it so special is what Vinterberg shows us as an audience member as the plot unfolds, and the way Mads Mikkelsen conveys the emotions he's going through, both internally and externally. The film also has an ending that'll send a chill down your spine and make you realize sometimes the things said about a person can never be shaken off their identity. Okay, now we're into the year 2011, and I've got two from this year that I think are undervalued and need some attention. Up first, we've got Steve McQueen's film Shame. This is another uncomfortable film about a man, played by Michael Fassbender, who appears to have a normal life aside from a near crippling sex addiction that threatens to ruin his life. His sister's arrival into the story upheaves the neat and tidy way his character has tried to manage his life, and from this point on, the movie spirals into dark directions. Carey Mulligan is dynamite as the main character's sister, and when I covered this episode back in season 1, I nominated Mulligan as a revised Best Supporting Actress, and the online community agreed with me by voting her to the win. Now, most people know McQueen for his Best Picture winning film 12 Years a Slave, but if you want to see what led him to that point in his career, you really should go back and check this out, as well as 2008's film Hunger, which also stars Michael Fassbender. And the other film from 2011 that I am here to champion is for me the single best movie of that calendar year. It is, of course, Take Shelter. This is another movie that whenever someone reaches out to me for a recommendation, I point them towards this because it's still criminally underseen. The film stars Michael Shannon as a husband and a father who starts having visions of the impending apocalypse. He begins taking proactive measures to protect his family, all the while wondering if what he's seeing is real or imagined in his head. The acting by Michael Shannon and Jessica Chastain, who plays his wife, are both extraordinary. But the way Jeff Nichols directs and paces the film is what keeps me coming back to this time and time again. And as a person who loves a truly ambiguous ending, this is completely made for my sensibility. It might just be my single favorite ending of any film in the 21st century. The movie also addresses and handles the idea of mental illness in such a deft way that needs to be studied and used as a reference point, with far too many films getting it wrong and stereotyping those individuals in ways that are demeaning of their humanity. And we're going to close out this third part in the series with a trifecta of films from the year 2010, which happened to be the very first year I did an Almanac episode on all the way back in season 1. We're going to start with Kim Ji-woon's South Korean action horror thriller, I Saw the Devil. This is a movie that's a one-of-one experience. It has almost no direct parallel that I can think of. It's a 2.5-hour-long movie that at its core is about a police detective and a serial killer, but the movie makes the most of its runtime by giving us the chance to spend time with each of the two men and their perspective. It's gruesome, it's stomach-turning at times, but it also has a razor-sharp black comedy edge to it that makes some of the scenes funny in a way only South Korean filmmakers seem to understand. Bong Joon-ho and Park Chan-wook each have their own way of doing this style of comedy in the middle of the most hell-inducing dramatic environments. And as is often the case with South Korean cinema, the less you know going in, the better off you're going to be. Kim Ji-woon is at the wheel and knows how to take you home. And for those that are familiar with one of the most prominent South Korean films, Old Boy, you'll recognize the lead actor of that film, Choi Min-sik, who plays the serial killer here. Up next in 2010, let's talk about Denis Villeneuve's Incendies. Before he became predominantly known as a contemporary science fiction director extraordinaire, Villeneuve was just a young French-Canadian filmmaker looking to craft stories of all shapes and sizes. A strong case can be made that Incendies is still his best work in totality all these years later. It certainly has one of the great plot reveals that will put your jaw to the floor once it happens. It's the type of moment you never, ever forget. To protect the integrity of the story, I'll just say this is about a pair of twins who receive information about their recently deceased mother that leads them down a path of discovery and danger. Watch the movie and experience it for yourself, though. As much as I love the worlds Denis has built with Dune and Arrival, and what fun he'll surely have with the James Bond franchise, I kind of miss the days when he made things of this scale that prioritized human drama above all else. And last, but certainly not least in 2010, we get to Derek Cianfrance's Blue Valentine. I unconditionally love this movie, full stop. You get two of my all-time favorite actors, Michelle Williams and Ryan Gosling, in a story about the way two people fall in love and the things that pull them apart and lead them ultimately to becoming separated. What makes this movie stand out so much for me is first and foremost the realism in the performance. Gosling and Williams spent time living together in preparation for the filming to help develop their chemistry, and my god, it pays off in spades here. What's also great about the storytelling and the editing is the way we get the movie cutting back and forth over the two key time periods. The first, how they came together and found each other, and the second, where they're at in the present day now with a child and trying to manage being separated but keeping life for their kid normal. There's an immense sadness to the second storyline and a warm tenderness to the first storyline, which are juxtaposed in dynamic fashion. What Cian France does brilliantly is he shows us little bits of how their relationship fragments, but he wisely doesn't reveal some of the bigger moments that probably sent our characters down different paths. It's this choice in storytelling that highlights how it's hundreds or maybe thousands of little moments that can slowly damage the integrity of the foundation and eventually cause a split. Can you tell I love this movie an unhealthy amount? Because I sure hope so. Alright, that's 10 more movies down. Let's really quickly run through those again. 2016's Train to Busan, 2015's Inside Out, 2014's Nightcrawler, 2013's Before Midnight, 2012's The Hunt, 2011's Shame and Take Shelter, and 2010's I Saw the Devil, Incendies, and Blue Valentine. And we've got another 20 more movies on the way. But I'm wondering, are you surprised that any of these 10 movies missed the New York Times Best of the Century list? Let me know what you think of these films, and I'll be back on October 20th with the fourth part in the series and the next 10 film omissions.